As well, just a reminder to upload your questions onto the Slido. The link was provided in the Eventbrite invitation, but I believe if I was able to do the tech correctly, there's also a Q&A function in this chat as well. So just to start us off, my name is Almira. I'm the Senior Policy Officer in the Innovation and Technology team at the Greater London Authority. I want to thank you all for joining us today to talk about our upcoming Open Innovation Challenge, Challenge London, which is focused around preventative poverty, with the key driver being the cost of living crisis. Today, you will hear a presentation from Barnet Council, who have currently partnered with us for this current challenge, and will be giving you an overview and context of the challenge from a local council perspective. And they will update you on their current work up to date on the cost of living crisis. Having Barnet Council be our partners on this challenge enables us to do real place-based prototyping with the solutions, be it with their service or their local residents or organizations in their borough. So we're really excited and grateful to have them on board with us. And from Barnet Council today, we are joined by Barry May, Assistant Director of Resident Experience in Digital, as well as Renee Shingles, who is on the strategy and policy team, leading on the council's cost of living work. After their presentation, there'll be a presentation from JP Astolfo, who is our lead senior policy officer for technology within our team at the Greater London Authority, and we'll give you an overview of the application process, what we're looking for, how it will run. Then after that, we will open it up to the questions that have been posted on Slido or here. And so with that, I will hand it over to Barry.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Barry May. So I'm from the London Borough of Barnet, and I've got a short presentation, some slides to run you through, and really to talk through some of the context of kind of the challenge from a London or any council local authority perspective, and just help hopefully put the context in as Meryl says, that a sort of place-based scenario. So hopefully you can all see the slides. So this is Barnet, for those that you don't know. It's kind of north central London. It's a little bit of context about Barnet. So Barnet's got the second largest population in London for a London borough, just behind Croydon. And there's some, I'm not going to read all those stats out on the screen there, but you can see, I think probably that Barnet is a very diverse borough. It's got very many different cultures, faiths in the borough. 48% of the population are not white. Big voluntary, charitable community organisations that support our residents alongside the council in partnership. We've got they're high-performing schools. A lot of people do come to the borough. Indeed, I did myself. I'm a Barnet resident, so as well as being assistant director of resident experience, I'm also a resident myself. So I mark my own challenge myself in terms of how the council's performing. And one of the reasons I kind of came into the borough was because of its high-performing schools, green spaces, and things like that. So really diverse, a large area as well that it covers in that North London part of the capital. So this slide really just talks about coming to the challenge around kind of financial vulnerability and how Barnet is kind of made up. So there is very affluent areas of Barnet where it's located, but there's also high pockets of deprivation, and those do tend to be centred around particular wards, particular areas within the borough. And I think that lends, there is a kind of place-based element to what we're kind of looking for in response to the challenge. And you can see on this kind of map, not to go into detail of the places, but just how that kind of is distributed across the borough. So it's very much kind of the west side of the borough and pockets over in the east and up into the north there. So that's where kind of the deprivation within the borough sits. And I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit about our journey as a local authority. Barnet has had a kind of new administration this year through the local elections, a real focus on community engagement, co-production and co-design in the solutions with our residents that work for our residents. As I'm sure you're aware, local authorities are always under kind of financial constraint and challenges, so we kind of have to do more with less. Really, the expectation of our population and our residents is always increasing, and not always in line with kind of the funding we have as a council. So we need to look at new and innovative ways to do things. And about, I suppose, 18 months ago, really, the council embarked on a kind of project around financial vulnerability, particularly, trying to identify residents that were in financial need, hardship, and how we could support those residents in a more kind of collective way across the council. Councils tend to have, their departments are not always working together. They have siloed systems, data, technology that sits behind some of the processes, and that can lead to kind of a fractured experience to our residents in some instances. They come into one part of the council, another part of the council doesn't know that resident's situation. One of the key drivers for the council's ambitions moving forward is how we can move to a more kind of preventative and proactive, holistic service offer for our residents. So we can use data in one area of the council with resident consent in another area of the council that can support them in areas such as financial vulnerability and wider vulnerabilities. And this slide really starts to pick up the context of why we think this is important as a council, why we're kind of doing this, and hopefully partners that kind of get involved in the challenge also kind of will support. So these are some of the kind of consequences of financial hardship and debt. And really, if we get this right, and some of the preventative actions we take, obviously that supports our residents, it supports the council using its finances in the most efficient way, and hopefully breaks some of that cycle of debt that our residents find themselves in, and how we can support them. So again, I'm not going to read out kind of the stats on this slide, but it's just trying to kind of bring together why we feel that this is a really important agenda, not least to support our residents out of poverty and stop them going into poverty. So just kind of a bit of insight from Barnet. We, as part of the kind of journey that we've been on, we've been looking at different data sets within the council. We've got we took some of our council tax, our housing data, our adults data, and tried to look at where we could identify households that were in debt, either through kind of owing the council money, not being able to pay their bills, etc. And some of the kind of stats on this slide, this is a little bit dated, probably slightly updated now, but it's the same kind of ratio. And by diving into that data, and this is quite a manual exercise, which is where it comes to sort of the challenge that we have, was to find those commonalities through that household, and we could support households in a more kind of holistic and preventative way. And you can see there again that there's about 77% of households in Barnet that have council tax debt, but also some form of vulnerability when we kind of look through our adults and housing data. And that's the area that we really want to focus on. They're the residents and the households that we really want to focus on. So it's about prioritising our resources to those more vulnerable residents, households, and how we can support them in different ways. So that piece of work that we've been undertaking has then kind of led to a response. Obviously, cost of living crisis kind of ramped up what we were doing earlier in the year, and we put a kind of coordinated response together that I'll come on to a bit on the next slide. And some of the things that we've considered through our research, so we have done some research and insight that I think has been shared as part of that process, how residents engage with the council. What's quite interesting is that there's a lot of anxiety and pressure on residents, and as they're engaging with the council in different ways, sometimes we're not supporting them or recognising that early enough to support them in the right way, and that actually kind of puts off sometimes residents reaching out for support. And one of the key things we've kind of identified in this challenge really is how we can identify residents earlier, and also ensure that they don't have any fear of kind of contacting a public service, that they don't get lost between services. They're not falling between the gaps because of any sort of accessibility needs or anything like that. So they're all real kind of priorities for us. Some other things that are just areas that we've, considerations for a council. Digital, we've got a really good digital inclusion program. We want to make sure that residents that are digitally excluded, they don't lose out. It's really good data and research that people that can't get online, it compounds their financial hardship through lack of employment and skills, difficulty getting into the job market, through to kind of just simple things like utilities companies often offer reductions or discounts through online means. So it excludes those people that need it most. So there's a whole host of things that we've been looking at. And then we've kind of put together a package that supports residents in the cost of living as at the moment. So we've looked at how we can find funding sources for immediate crisis support. We've looked at partnerships with our community voluntary sector and how we can support those in different ways and support residents through things like food hubs, warm places, etc. And we've also then looked at what I was mentioning at the beginning, the kind of system part of things, the processes, the systems, that kind of bit that creates a kind of disjointed council from our residents' perspective. So how do we join up our data? How do we join up some of our technology and be able to kind of identify or support to identify residents before they get into financial hardship? But also importantly, how we can kind of track better the impact of these interventions. Because what we often find is there's a bit of a kind of cycle of, we might do a kind of initial intervention that might support a resident in that moment, or indeed we might signpost off to support. But how do we make sure that is really having the impact that it needs to? And that's kind of the areas that we're looking for in response to this challenge, really. So residents, sustainably get out of financial hardship. And some of the outreach work that we've done and some of the teams that we've set up to support that over the last 6 months have been quite important to that. So that was the end of my slides. I've got Renee on the call who might want to come in as well, because Renee's kind of been leading the work, putting together that cost of living package, getting that through kind of our committee processes and getting that signed off internally. So, and then Renee, if you want to mention anything that I might have missed.
No, I mean, you nailed it all. I think, some of the interesting and it's probably relevant to this is, as you can see, Barnet is quite affluent, but it does have really targeted pockets of high deprivation. And when we were looking at how we can target these resources, specifically with, cost of living and the economic recession coming up, it was really hard to identify, what is the challenges that are coming up against these particular areas? Why are these particular areas so stubborn to move out of that area, out of deprivation, and what can we do? So we are hoping that a lot of what we are collecting and the data and the systems that we're going to be put in place, we can start getting a bit more visibility about it. But I know in the engagement process, when we were delivering the policy, we were hearing things from food banks saying for the first time they're seeing people that are in work coming into the food bank. So I think that when we're seeing those, it's a really big challenge, because it's not just that we're looking at unemployment, we're actually looking that people in employment are struggling to make ends meet. And that sends off some flags for us, I think, because we know how stubborn it currently is and how much that can quickly gain traction. So we're very, very aware, and we want to make sure we focus in those areas. So yeah. Any questions?
I was just going to end actually. One of the reasons Barnet partnered in this challenge, particularly with the GLA, was that obviously councils have been trying to look at this for a long time. It's not a new thing. The cost of living crisis isn't a new thing, but it is kind of what we can do differently and use some of kind of the design processes and methodologies to look at this problem in a different way. Because things that we have done in the past, yes, they do have impact. But clearly they're not having enough impact, and that's really kind of, I think, the bit that we're kind of really keen to kind of partner and get involved in this opportunity actually. So yeah, so if we're taking questions now or towards the end.
I think we'll take questions towards the end. So JP will just run through kind of the process from our side, from the application process, and also what we're looking for, and a bit more context to that. So thank you so much, Renee and Barry. I will hand it over to JP.
Cool. Thank you, Amira. Thank you, Barry and Renee. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Yeah, I hope you can see that. So yeah, and I'm going to walk you through the all the information we have on our website and the Innovators Guide about the challenge and how the program is organized. We're going to share the slides that Barry showed and all these slides. So please, if you want to start checking now things, you can do it. But of course, you'll receive all the information. So Challenge London is a program that tackles London's most complex and pressing challenges through open innovation. And this is working with communities, identifying big challenges, and inviting organizations from outside, innovators from all sectors, to work together to co-design solutions. And as Barry was mentioning, using design and system thinking, and working to putting Londoners at the heart of solutions. So up to date, we have run 23 challenges with more than £2 million in funding to prototype and scale ideas, with over 280 hours of facilitations, 500 hours of support, and this for more than 100 businesses and organizations. Here you have a few of the case studies of startups and organizations that have worked with Challenge London in the past. So our poverty prevention challenge, we are now in the call out to innovators until the 16th of December, where this phase closes. So we're trying to, with these 3 questions, to look for innovators that can help identify people at risk and prevent them from being plunged into poverty. So as a little bit as Barry mentioned before, the first question is around how might we identify and support people who are at risk of falling into poverty, but are currently falling through the gaps. So people that boroughs are not being able to support and to use all the policies and programs they have in place to support them. This is the example Rina mentioned around in-work poverty and people going for the first time to a food bank, and how these people can access and connect with boroughs to receive support. The second question is around how might we create new products and services that empower people at risk. So this is, for example, in financial tools or different kind of tools that will help people to be able to cope with these challenges of the cost of living crisis, and through empowerment be able to overcome this by skills, education, or financial assistance, for example. And the third one is directly to the cost of living crisis, and this is how might we prevent people from falling into poverty through mitigating the worst effects of the cost of living crisis. And this is at food, fuel, and housing costs. So ideas related to these particular effects of the cost of living crisis. So this is basically 3 ideas to get people started and thinking, and of course we are open to, as Mary mentioned, new ways of seeing these problems, and lateral thinking around this. So this is just to set what the scope is, and we are open to receiving proposals that tackle these challenges in different ways. So what is that the program offers to innovators? So 8 ideas will receive £5,000 for the we call the co-design phase or the prototyping phase, with place-based support. This is in Barnet, where you can work with the team of the borough to test and prototype your ideas. And after the prototyping phase that we are going to see now, in the timeline how long it take and what effort, you'll be able to come with a proposal for additional funding of up to £50,000 to scale up the idea and take that prototype into reality. So the first benefit of participating is making a lasting difference to Londoners. So and this is through what the program enables, which is exposure to new markets, people and organizations, working with the GLA, with boroughs, with communities throughout London, also connecting to the broader network that the GLA and the boroughs possess. So this is going to help you connect and develop your idea with a big network of organizations, and also access to best practice expertise. So through the co-design phase and the scale-up phase, you will receive support that will put you in a great place to scale up your idea. So this is the timeline. We are now in December, close to the deadline for applications. That is on the 16th of December. Between December and February, according to the number of applications we receive, the judging is going to be taking place, and we will announce the winners. And we're starting in February the prototyping phase, where the finalists are invited to prototype their ideas and will receive £5,000 to support this activity. This is important. This is an intensive work that is going to happen with the team of Challenge London and the borough. So that's why this funding is for innovators to be able to work in these 2 months and be part of workshops and activities to prototype the ideas and see if they are able to be scaled up. And after this phase, you will be able to write a proposal and put it again in front of the judges to receive up to £50,000 in additional support, depending on the idea, the stage the idea is in, and also the different funding opportunities you may have. So you may apply for a part of funding through this program, and you may have other sources of funding that you will present in your proposal and would be evaluated. After that, up to 8 innovators will receive the funding or some they requested and the judges approved, and will receive again support to scale up the idea. And this is from April to September, so it's going to be a period between 6 and 9 months, and this will vary depending on the ideas, on the projects, and on the need for coordination with the place-based support. So important information: you will receive our website link, the Innovators Guide, where you will have all the information for the program, and the application form that you can see here, the link to apply. The deadline is at 11:55 p.m. on Friday, 16th of December, 2022. And important time commitment: the prototyping phase is intensive, will take 6 to 8 workshops and bi-weekly one-to-ones meetings, and this is in a period of 2 months, plus the prototyping work you will be doing yourself to be able to apply for the scale-up phase, where the support will be smaller. You will have one-to-ones and additional business support. It's not the scale-up is all about scale up your idea, so you will receive as much support you need for that to happen. And a note on the use of funds: so the funds must be used for activities directed that directly relate to delivering the idea. I'm talking about the funds of the scale-up phase, the up to £50,000. So this is particularly not for salaries of the team, for example, but for activities that are needed to delivering your idea. But well, at the moment when you will prepare the proposal for the scale-up phase, you will present a project plan and you can discuss with the team previously the funding and how to to apply for this, right? Finally, what does good look like? You will find in the Innovators Guide the judging criteria. You have 6 judging criteria there that are really related to what we've been discussing today. We really look for collaboration, for ideas that are new approaches for the problems we want to tackle. Also, people that is looking for prototyping, iterating, and improving the ideas that will make an impact on Londoners, and that can be replicated and scaled throughout and across London. And this also needs a sustainable delivery model. This is a business model that is sustainable in the future and is substanding. And we are also, finally, I want to mention that we are cultivating through our outreach approach variety and diversity. This is people working in different ways and from different backgrounds. So these are values and criteria that we are cultivating in the program. Well, I think this is it. Good luck. Thank you for me.
Amazing. Thank you, JP. So that wraps up the presentation. So there's 2 questions that have been posed. One's in the Q&A here. Duncan, if you wish to ask the question yourself, you're more than welcome to, or I'm happy to read it out for you. Okay, I will read it out. So it says, thank you for setting out Barry and Renee. It sounds like you are looking for a new data architecture that provides you with new ways of viewing your data. Would you be looking for us to produce a brief that will then be used to create this, or a prototype based on your existing data sets? I think, at least just from our perspective, the necessity to be able to prototype in that phase is really important. So my concern would be that if you are trying to create that brief during that period, you won't be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of that. So I think I'd be keen, if you're able to, is to use the existing data sets that we have. And then in your scale-up phase is when you can develop it further. Do let me know, Duncan, if that answers your question. Perfect, no problem. And the next question we have is, coping with the cost of living crisis is a national problem. How tailored should solutions be to London, aside from being able to work with the local London teams? I think we're quite keen for the solutions to be London-based, with obviously the idea that, in order to be able to do the scale-up phase, you need to be able to show that your idea is scalable. If we're able to find a solution that works here, working with Barnet, and that's a solution for London, and that can be applied to the rest of the UK, that's phenomenal. We're keen to try and help and alleviate poverty for as many people as possible across the UK. So 100%, that would be great. Those are all the questions that have been posed on these forums. If anybody wants to come off mic and ask a question, please feel free to do so. We're keen to not necessarily have this be too formal. Which data sets would we get access to? Barry or Renee? I think.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was struggling to see the questions actually, so I'm not sure who asked my question. But we've.
It was me. I don't know if you can hear me, Barry.
Yeah.
And Almira, it's Duncan here.
Hi.
I finally made my mic work.
No worries.
The data sets that we've been focusing on, which will probably be, and we've actually found, to come to Amira's point, actually around trying to start small on the data problem. So we've been looking at some of our housing benefit, our council tax data. We started to look at our housing and adults data, but it became quite complex. So we focused in on the kind of council tax and housing benefit data, and obviously with the kind of appropriate safety nets put in place, then those kind of data sets would be make sense for the prototype, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. This has been really interesting and an amazing challenge. Wanted to touch back on one of the things you asked in the start, or you mentioned as one of the drivers, which was about mental health issues, both as a driver for some of the cost of living crisis and as a consequence of the cost of living crisis. Is that one of the areas where you'd be looking in terms of impact? And I know you talked about council resources. Is peer support, support buddies, one of the sort of innovations you would consider as part of your solution.
Bella, if you could just explain a bit more in terms of what you mean by peer support or innovation buddies.
Yes, that's one of the things we've been doing with charities at Matching Mind is sometimes it really helps to talk with somebody who's walked in your shoes, what we call experts by experience, somebody who's been there and who's come out. And when you talked about barriers and fears of sometimes going forward to public services, people feel more comfortable talking to someone like them. So would that be one of the things you might consider as part of the innovation, a peer who can then help signpost them to other things? So help them through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think from just a general perspective in terms of the innovators that we have, what we're looking for within the innovations, part of it is the idea of, if this is a charity or organization, how are you able to sustain yourself post the process? So I think that's something we're quite keen on, is to understand what funding mechanisms will you be putting in place in order to ensure that your idea is sustainable in the long term. But Barry, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, yeah, it's quite an interesting idea, because some of our insight that came out is the very fact that the person you're talking to is a rent officer or somebody that, and traditionally they've been collecting that whole bit is about that kind of, the perception of the council, I think. So that is part of the kind of, yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea around how we use different methods and people to engage with our residents.
I might comment if that's okay. I think mental health it's after COVID and everything, it's such a big challenge that's, I think, been put on people's radar a lot more. As a council, we're known, people do know that there's a council there and there's things there. But you're absolutely right, what that translates into as how they see us as a service and what we can do. And we definitely do a lot of signposting, and we definitely do work with a lot of partners when it comes to around the mental health. I think when we're specifically talking about poverty as well, and we're talking about, persistent poverty, there are a lot of mental health challenges around it, for whether it's feeling stuck, whether it's feeling like there's actually no light at the end of the tunnel. And then when we also look at the last couple of years, there's so much uncertainty as well. So I would say that there's a lot there that can be done with mental health, and it would be, if there was something that we could do that would be scalable, I think it would change a lot of people's lives.
Great. Justin, you have your hand up. Oh, you're on mute. Yes, Justin.
We can hear you, Amira, but yeah, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Amazing presentation and opportunity. I'm no longer based in London, so it may be that I'm not quite well fitted at the moment for this project, but as someone who's been working with social prescribing and the development of that over many, many years, not deeply, but certainly in terms of the concept, the possibility and so forth, I wondered how much that aspect has taken off in Barnet. I'm actually based currently in Glasgow, but in Barnet, as an example, how much is social prescribing and that mechanism with the link workers, the GP referrals? And I would just stress taking the emphasis off that, the medical aspect, the word prescribing and even the reference to the GP, but really it is about this bigger opportunity, this bigger outreach and connection within the local community for resources. So I'm sure you are well aware of that aspect.
Do you want to?
Yeah, do you want to come in, Renee? Yeah.
So we do have a social prescribing network within Barnet, and it's definitely something that it would be a great area to explore as well. I think there's two challenges we see in this area is what is my support network from a resident's experience is so difficult to communicate, and it's so difficult to, how does that relate to their individual need, which I think is, again, another challenge in the wider health health innovation opportunity of, that specific what's me, and when we're thinking about the potential of opportunities of real-time, data and all that stuff that really could help people and also help with that network. I get quite excited by that context, but I do think some of the challenges we really do have is that root cause, kind of where is that person and how do we get them through that that journey from A, B to C to D, instead of just the kind of one situation fits all, you know, the one fits all approach that we kind of see. But we do have that network, and it is definitely something that you could look into and tap into for sure.
Awesome. So there was a question. If you press the Q&A at the top, you'll be able to see the questions, but I just posted it over from Slido. So it says, we are part of the FCA Innovation Sandbox. Could we use their sandbox environment for demoing the prototype? We will be provided regulated activities. What am I trying to say? If the information provided there is able to help you with your solution, yes, absolutely. I think we really are trying to look for different ways to approach this, and different people trying to look at this from other angles. So that wouldn't hinder your application at all. Duncan.
Yeah, could we narrow it down a bit to a specific challenge within this, because it's a huge area, isn't it? As Bella was saying about the mental health side of it, but
100%, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like sort of debt awareness or food locations of food banks. I mean, this is specifics, but just thinking for something quite tangible.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think we're expecting our innovators to completely solve poverty necessarily, and we are trying to look at, if 100% we're open to people that are working on food insecurity, or as Bella said, regarding mental health provisions, as many different and variety of solutions as possible that we can look at to start tackling this issue. We're very, very happy to accept. And as much as possible, we really want a level of diversity in this, because, perhaps not akin to other challenges, but we're looking for this to be really collaborative. So the cohort that exists, we're not looking at competition between them, we're looking at collaboration. And we would love it if each of the innovators are able to work together, and we're trying to create the environment and the ecosystem such that they can work together, feed off each other's insights to help accelerate all of their ideas. This is really kind of the environment that we're trying to create with this.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Are there any other questions? If any questions arise, especially for those who are potentially listening, oh, Justin, please go ahead.
Just picking up on that location thing, does being based in Glasgow, and obviously there's a good train connection, make it more difficult, practical, feasible, or is that not really an issue because of digital connection and, yes, trains, etc.?
I think because where we're placed in terms of being the Greater London Authority, the funding that we use has to support like London-based SMEs and organizations and charities.
Great, no problem. Thank you.
No problem. There is a contact us function on our website, so any questions that arise post this, please feel free to ask them there. There's always somebody, one of us, that can answer them. And we really are very excited about this challenge, and for us to kind of close up the call to application so we can see all of your amazing ideas. And yeah, really looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you on the other side of this. And I wish you all the best, and best of luck with your applications. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.